recapitulation, the summary for this day 24 session in Godot game engine. So it's been 7 hours, 8 hours in, and I've managed to modify the game to work as a simulation with rigid bodies. Enabled the collision detection on mobs so they bump against each other. I wanted to have the game running as some sort of simulation that gives it variety. And also I was looking into how to make mobs change direction from the initial impulse they're given and the instancing, and how to make them actually, while the simulation for their rigid bodies is running. I had to implement some force application of the force like impulse, so I've added a signal from the animation player for the mob scene, for their scene for each frame change, that they get a slight impulse. So they're like on animation they're kind of walking with a slight impulse, changing the direction, overcoming the initial direction from the moment they're spawned, when they receive the initial speed and direction. And on that signal I actually update, I tell them face the player, face the direction of the player, and apply a little bit of force impulse with direction towards the player. So I'll tweak that. And also early in the stream I managed to get to track how many child nodes, actually instances of these mobs is in the screen, so I can like for a benchmark get the idea how many of them are in the screen, and also implement a cap like limit, so it is possible to implement like level progression difficulty. My player entity can leave the screen and they will try to follow him. At the moment so very interesting way to learn more about the simulation or applied simulation processing, physics processing applied to the implemented in the rigid body. They're not per se, they're not supposed to be, they don't have methods implemented like for controlling movement, but applying forces. And I just wanted to make it simple, more relying on what's implemented in the engine. This is Godot's game engine, physics engine. As I understand, there will be changing it. It's possible to change the inbuilt engine, physics engine. At the moment, well, did I actually in the recapitulation run what's going on, how the game is running? So they have their initial velocity, they'll bounce off each other. There are some funny moments when I didn't, when I had too much force applied to them, they just flew over the screen, kicking one another off the screen, the mobs, because the game works like a touch the player die. It doesn't bounce me off. Maybe I could implement on my character also physics, so the game over would be if I'm kicked off the screen. Here is just on the collision. game over implementation. But this is kind of initial idea for having something going on in the game, for a top-down concept for prototyping, and the basic directing of forces, like a impulse directed towards the player, so it gives the impression that the mobs are well, it's cheating. I just pass them the player position and they face him and apply a little force trying to get to him. There's no AI, only AI is nothing. They're not like detecting the area. So what I could do next is add a ray cast and use the raycast, maybe allow them to detect their surrounding, the objects. Maybe let them try to go around each other, let the simulation running, and maybe do those types of things. So simulation physics engine would make them tick, live, and give them some properties like and methods to, while being ticked and animated by the physics engine, get them move around. At this moment they are the rigid bodies with directional force applied to them, like specifically the impulse. But I also figured out, okay, for character body 2D I can actually implement movement, scripted movement like AI. Similar way, but this was perhaps even more interesting because I think that the character body 2D, what I've read, where is it? The okay. Here I used a lot for the reference. This top-down game template, which is interesting actually. At first, when I just played with it, it was like awful, but one can learn a lot from it to learn how to customize and create useful prototyping without to interactively learn without wasting time on creating assets, just to develop game logic, or what would be called start building game design and leave visuals on the side. But it implements, for example, these enemies are actually character body 2Ds, but they have the if you notice, they push against each other, so they also have a physics. I'll go through that another time, probably tomorrow, or I don't know. And if I check at the character body 2D, it's interesting what it says. It's the special class of physics body that are meant to be user controlled. They are not affected by physics at all. but they affect other physics body in their path. But that's not true. Character body have a physics gravity. They're usually recommended for platformer, and the initial script, template script for the node, generic script, implements the jump and left and right movement. Is it move and slide? But they can be actually scripted movement, and they will, like we see, affect what they say here, other physics body in their path. Wall and slope detection. In addition to general collision detection provided by physics body 2D move and collide, this makes it useful for highly configurable physics body that must move specific way and collide with the world. So if I look, for example, just to take a peek and then close the completely, also the summary. What's in here? Okay, they have the physics process. Do they have move and slide anywhere here? How are they being commanded? It's interesting to see. I'll use replicate what they do here for animation, because they don't use the external resources. What am I looking here is the pushback. So there is a this would be like a simplified version for the for example, from Kids Can Code, something like click and move, or aim with mouse. So they have a look at, but they don't need to turn. And they don't have move and slide. So what's going on here? Move and slide, so they're just, the position is updated this way. Okay. This is the enemy. Yeah, it's the enemy. So they got their position updated. And that is most similar to aim with mouse. What else? Rotate and move. Move and slide. 8-way movement, rotate and move. Velocity, transform X. Anyway, these recipes are good. It's not okay. I think this is this part looks more like a position, direction, to target, speed, player position, global position, normalize. I think I used exactly this kind of implementation, how to turn to the player and go towards the player, like direct the impulse for the rigid body. So the my implementation is apply central impulse, position, direction to player. So I didn't even need to use the look at. I could just say direction to. Maybe let me just check this. Do I need even this? Is this even necessary? because what I wanted is actually for them is to look at player. I think this is the default scene. I ran the wrong scene, I think. What am I running here? It feels like they're not even receiving. Okay, they do have their force applied towards me. The impulse force as they're trying to get to me. Let me see that again. So as they slow down, they can start they are slowly going towards the player. That's obvious as everything is swarmed around the player spawn, player position. But it seems like this look at player makes it actually more visually appealing. In addition to the games kids can code recipes, the official documentation has actually also in the manual to this section, physics and movement, to the movement overview, click and move. So instead detecting, for example, for my simulation, instead of detecting click, I just pass them, target the player global position, and in physics process, position distance to target, move and slide, but in this case not move and slide. Some combination of these expressions here. Actually just getting the direction, one implementation of this to apply the impulse for the rigid body. And that's it. Thank you for stopping by. It's been great fun after quite a few, I don't know, 5 days running around doing not much. So I say I want to play, I want to be playful, use the engine work for me without implementing who knows what. I want for prototyping some basic simulation going on and build around that. So I'm Oliver Eddy, your host. You know who loves you the most, you know. Signing out. Thanks for stopping by, checking the summary. I need to look over there to grab this scene, which is the outro, so